voices. And we all know to this month, October, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I would like to introduce my guest today. I have a guest today, my sister, Tawana. Hey, Tawana, welcome to KAZ Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Today, we're going to be talking about a little of both breast cancer awareness and also domestic violence awareness because it is a lack of information out there when it comes to men. And that's my take on doing these topics when it comes to domestic violence and breast cancer. Now, today I just did a little research about men and breast cancer, in which I very seldom hear about breast cancer and men. And what I learned today was a little bit of information from the American Cancer Society. And Tawana, if you could share a little bit of those notes that we found in regards to breast cancer, the survival rate.
Survivor.
Well, not just the survival rate, but just a little bit of information regarding men and breast cancer.
Well, breast size number one, and lack of awareness number two.
Mm-hmm.
And of awareness is the most important.
We become aware of the breast cancer as it relates to not just women, but men also. We can help our men become healthy. We can help them become aware that they too can suffer from breast cancer and that they can have the same one. I'm not sure the same type of exam, but it's an exam that they can have that will detect breast cancer. So men and women is not just breast cancer awareness month for women, but we also need to be aware that breast cancer also attacks men just as much. Did you find some other information about breast cancer?
High risk men who are or may be at high risk, and
Are men more at a higher risk than women?
no,
So it's about the same.
it's about
The
the
numbers
same.
are about the same.
Yes,
But the awareness needs to be
be
more out there in regards to men and
yes,
breast cancer. Yes, so when we hear breast cancer, it does not just refer to women only. Breast cancer also affects men.
and men can also do self exams just
Self
like
exam.
women.
Oh, see, I'm learning something new. So yes, my little inquiring mind wants to know. That's why I researched the information. And by this being Domestic Violence Awareness and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I was just a little bit more interested in learning more about breast cancer in men. So thank you, Tawana, for sharing that
You're
information.
welcome.
Thank you. So on our next note, we will be talking again because you know I always talk about men and abuse. That is my calling from God, and I want to thank God for using my voice to bring awareness to abuse when it comes to men. Now, today I had one of my clients gave me permission to share his story, and it's real. It's going to be a little touchy, but it's a real story from a man, and this is from the beginning of his childhood. It was him, his sister, and his mom and his dad. So it's just a small family. He was very happy that he was a big brother, and he loved taking care of his sister, helping his mom and his dad take care of their baby sister. And when he noticed changes in his home, his dad began to drink, argue, and fuss with his mom. That he couldn't understand it. But he shared in his story that His dad was abusive to his mom to the point where she almost died. She slipped into a coma and she almost died. And after being in the hospital for so long, she was well. She came out of her coma, but she still had to stay in the hospital for a long time. But when she was well enough to go home, she wasn't the same. So he had to take care of his mom and his sister, but the dad was still abusive. And the part that he shared was just heartbreaking. This, he said, was the beginning of his abuse. When his mom, he asked his mom, why was she always in a bad mood and just became so aggressive towards him and not his sister. His mom, he said his mom said the worst words out of her mouth that he could ever imagine. His mom said to him, I hate you. I hate you, and I've been hating you since the day you were born. And you are the reason why my husband beat me, because my husband found out that you are not his son. Now, that little bit of information coming from this young man, again, when we hear stuff like that, and we don't want to believe that men also suffer abuse, but this young man, he experienced this abuse in his childhood. So imagine this young man, what he felt about himself, how his mom felt about him, and also that his dad, it wasn't really his dad. Now this young man has went through most of his life not knowing who his father was, learning that his mother didn't love him. That is the worst type of abuse for anybody to have to endure. So if this comes from a young man, just imagine this type of abuse coming from a young lady. And if a young man don't get help, when he reach out to try to get help from these situations, he don't get the help that he needs. And this is where the murder suicide rates continue to rise. Tawana, being my guest, what are your intakes on this type of abuse from childhood for a son to hear his mom
It's
tell him that she hate him?
it's very heartbreaking. You know, I have sons myself, and that's something I would never say to neither one of my sons because I love them dearly. So, me being a mother of males, I have to teach them not only to love themselves, but to love others as well. You know, I can tell you, I have two sons that's very protective of their mother. So if they're protective over their mother, I have to be protective over them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, your sons are very protective over you, and they're overprotective of Auntie.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
So
yeah.
abuse in men is just as damaging as it is abuse with women, no matter what kind it is, verbal, mentally, physically. It's very damaging.
Now, if your son came home to you and let you know about his wife or significant other abusing him, how would you help him address that issue?
First, I would ask him to talk to her to get her some help, as well as himself. They both have to have counseling, but she may need it more so than him because she's the aggressor. Quote.
And because he was raised not to ever put his
Put his
hands
hands
on a
on a
woman,
woman.
now he's been in this abusive situation for, I'll just put a number out there, 2 years, and he never told mom about it,
It will
and
hurt me.
he never mentioned it to anybody. So
It will hurt
he
me dearly.
he tried to call for help, but it didn't. So if he was raised to never put his hands on a woman or raise his voice at a woman, that's why that female felt like, okay, he's soft. I can do this because he's not raising his voice and he's not hitting me back. But then it's like, okay, your son might get to the point where I'm sick of this, and not intentionally, but she does something to him and he just goes to grab her. But he ended up grabbing her and handling her a little bit too roughly. Now your son is going to get in trouble for domestic violence.
Exactly.
Right, and that's the twist to all of this, because you have females who are the abusers, and the men, they're raised not to put their hands on a woman or to raise their voice or to seek help. And because he grabbed her to protect himself, he handled her just a little bit too roughly, and now she called the police on him, and now he's being charged with domestic violence. How would you help him address that situation?
That's a tough one. We just sit down and talk about it, and then we'll go see a lawyer to try to get him out of that situation, because I know, and you know, women will have a tendency of telling tales about
They do.
what happened.
They do.
And I wouldn't want my son to be in that kind of situation if that type of environment or situation. I would do whatever I can to pull him out of it, as a mother, as a friend, as a counselor.
Because you have women, they are so, I want to say, use the word slick, you know, our outer beauty. It's very difficult to tell when a female is the abuser or the aggressive, because men have this, they're visual, and it's a beautiful thing. You know, I love her even though she's abusing me. I love her, and I'm gonna make sure I try to get her some help, but she doesn't want the help.
That's why
But he don't want to leave the situation
you have to
either.
seek God first.
That's the key.
You got to seek God first.
That's the key. That's
Once
the
you
key.
get down on your hands and knees and you pray, He'll always give
Oh,
you
yeah.
what you ask for.
Absolutely. And then people always say you don't look like what you've been through.
You don't look.
And that's why I talk about my story. It's a testimony, and that's how I got out of my situation. I'll be glad when book number 2 come out. But this is book number 1, not by myself. And it's my personal testimony. And from some of the readers of this book, they said this book, the information really helped them look at their own personal situation in a different way. I had a young lady that said she really thought she was the only one who was going through abuse, and she didn't know what to do. She said she just got tired of walking around pretending like she was okay, and then when she get home, she's there by herself, and all she did was cried. So she read the book, and she said for a second she thought she was reading her own story.
In retro to your book, I come out. Who knew?
Who knew?
That's the topic, the name of my book.
Okay.
In retro to yours.
Beautiful.
Who knew?
Beautiful. Or when is it going to be published? I want to be the first one to buy it.
Hopefully before March.
Now, how did you come up with that title? I like that title.
Because I read my sister's book,
Oh,
and the things that my sister went through, I went through. Who knew?
and this, once you share your testimony, and I also shared this with some people, you can write your story in a book form, but you don't have to publish it.
Don't have to publish
You don't have to publish it. It's just your story. It gives you the opportunity to read your story. It's your story. You lived it. You survived it, and now you can put it in a book form, and you can read your own story. After I read my book, I learned so much more about myself. In this book, it was something that I came to, but in the forgiving part, I said, wait a minute, huh? Who does that? God want me
No.
to forgive and to pray for the person that hurt me? Wait a minute,
Yes.
who does that and why? But I know I had to do it because I had to make room for that very thing that God needed to put in me so that he can use me. So when we speak on forgiving, we can't just say, I forgive, but I won't forget. Of course, you don't want to forget. And that's why I share with people, you don't want to forget. And you can't forget unless you have dementia. I always say that. Unless you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you can't forget. So when the very thing comes up, is what you do with it. A lot of the situations come up with me, and my recent situations, I think about it. But at those, it's those moments where I ask God, okay, what do you need me to do with this? Because I'm not going to sit here and let the enemy try to trip me up,
Your trials and
because he
tribulations are
will,
your testimonies.
yeah,
All of
the
this.
enemy will always try to trip you up with that very thing that he know you won't forget. So when, at those moments when they do come up, I always ask God, what do you need me to do with this? And I sit quietly. He may not answer right then and there at that moment, but I'm letting the enemy know. You don't have, you can't have this. You can't have this. So I'm gonna take that very thing the enemy tried to trip me up with, and I'm gonna send it up in prayer to God, and I'm patiently going about my business and wait for God to give me my answer to that very thing. And then, whew, Lord have mercy.
Who knew?
God give me some things that I can't keep up with myself half the time. It's just I love it. I love it. But I love that title. Who
Who
knew?
knew?
Who knew? Because again, I share some things in my book in the beginning about judging a person's character. You know, and that's another thing that some people experience. You know, you I could look at you, don't know anything about you, and say, "Oh, she thinks she something," but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case. Or I can see you always smiling, and you just got this happy-go-lucky, joyful spirit, but on the inside you might be broken.
Broken.
But I'll look at you and say, "Oh
Who
my
knew?
God, why is she always happy? She get on my nerve. Why is she always smiling?" I had that. I used to have that when I was working for public transportation. Why are you always happy? I remember the one morning I got to work at 2:30 in the morning. Yes, I was at work at 2:30 in the morning, and I said good morning to one of my coworkers. Now, mind you, he was there before me, and his answer was, "What's so good about it?"
Mm, mm.
I grabbed my assignment and just kept it
Kept it
moving,
moving.
because all of that negative energy right there, I was like, no, not going to entertain that. So, judging someone's character, I'm always happy. Even though I was going through these things, these tribulations and this trauma, I was always happy. I was always happy. I was broken on the inside, but I was still happy. And that's why everything that I tried to do to harm myself, it didn't work.
I hear it
Because
every day.
because God was with me, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that he was with me. So that's the other thing that people experience, having someone misjudge their character. We hear all the time, "Oh, you think you better than us, and you think you better." And my response to that was, no, I'm not better, but I am different. So
Amen.
you have to know the difference between that,
Amen.
because when you have someone who think they're better than the next person, that means they are broken. And I would always respond, I'm not better than nobody, but I will be better than who I was yesterday. That's who I'm going to be better
Amen.
than. So when it
Amen.
comes to me being better than somebody, I'm going to make every effort to be better than I was
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Amen.
So I let people know it's a difference. No, I'm different from you, but I am better than
Better
who I
than.
was the day before. So again, we talk a lot about abuse, and if I didn't decide to open myself up and let God do what he needed to do, again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be sitting here and sharing my testimony and have my guest share hers. We can't wait to read her book. Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew?
Because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm praying that I get, well, I can share that I am writing a third book. I got two more books. The second one is going to be a part two of Not By Myself, and that one is entitled Barefoot in the Valley. And the third book, that one is entitled A Letter, A Letter to My Loved Ones. And that one is going to be stories. These are real stories by men who gave me permission to write a book to share their stories.
Awesome.
And all names and personal information will be will not be disclosed. So the stories are going to be real. So be looking out for book number 3, A Letter to My Loved Ones. So right now, I want to take this time and this opportunity again to thank my guest,
You're welcome.
my sister,
It's a pleasure.
Tawana. Anything you want to share with us?
I'm just grateful to be able to be sitting here considering, like you said, with all the breast cancer awareness, the domestic violence awareness that we have been enduring within the past. Can't even throw no
Couple of
numbers out
days.
there.
Yeah, I mean, it just really hit like a tsunami.
Flowing.
Yeah,
flowing
it
like
just
a
really
water
hit like a
faucet.
tsunami over the last couple of days. So, yes, people.
Please
it's
get
time.
out there and don't be scared to speak when it come down to abuse. And please, fellas, get those breast exams done. You
Please
can always
do.
do them yourself.
Please do. Breast cancer does not only affect women, but it also affects men as well. Don't be afraid. If you got a female friend or whoever significant other who loves you, do not be afraid to let her know. Y'all talk about it, because she will let you know that your health is just as important to her
As hers.
as it is to herself. So men, it's important, not just the prostate cancer. And I thank God I have a friend who survived prostate cancer. He shared his story with me. He shared the little photos, and every time he said he get emotional every time he read his paperwork. And I told him, I said, that's nobody but God.
But God.
It's nobody but God, because he said he didn't feel no type of pain in his body, but he just noticed that he started to feel a little bit more fatigued than normal. So he knew something was wrong. So he went and had his exam and everything in the prostate, and that's when they found cancer. But he's cancer free.
But God.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
God be the
but
glory.
God. So men, we love y'all. Virtuous women, we love y'all too. So if you're a virtuous woman, I always talk about the virtuous woman. All women are virtuous women because God created you in his image, and there's not one human being walking around today who was not birthed by a woman. So all women are virtuous women. Women, it's time to step up. If you are an abuser, ask God.
Seek help.
Ask God. If you are afraid to pick up the phone and call anybody, just get on your knees and pray. Pray, ask God to heal you right there where you are. And you have to be patient. Please be patient, because God will take his time answering prayers. If he know that you are not sincere in your heart, he's not going to answer it right away. But as long as you open your mouth and you pray and you seek him, he will hear you and he will heal you. So if you need healing, seek God first. Make sure you seek God first. And I just want to again take this time and this opportunity to thank my guests. Any last words, prayers, anything you would like to share?
To God be the glory.
Absolutely.
To God be the glory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those who want to use their voice, God called me to do. God called me to encourage others to use their voice to help others, help our silent victims, help those silent voices, which are the men. And men, if you are in an abusive situation, seek help before the situation becomes too overwhelming for you, because the murder suicide rates are continuing to climb, especially during this pandemic and everything that's going on across this nation. We are losing too many men. And men, if you are afraid, if you don't feel safe in your environment, don't feel embarrassed. Seek help. Leave if you can. Well, we know you can, but leave before anything worse happens, because remember, you are someone's child. You are someone's son. And the worst thing that you don't want to do is put more pain or pressure on any of your loved ones when it comes to this murder, suicide, or any other abusive situation that it may be difficult to be, remove yourself from. But you have to get to the point where you love yourself enough to walk away from the situation. We all know that it's not always easy, but the effort is very important. Seek help if you have to go to a shelter, or even if you can find a way to open up a shelter of your own and help other men. Is greatly needed, because there's not that many shelters here in Cleveland. It's a handful in Ohio, but they're all spaced out. So if you can, if you have the opportunity, try to find a way to open up a shelter or some other safe space for yourself. And then you can also reach out to other men who may be suffering from the same types of abuse. Again, I want to take this opportunity and just thank God. Just want to thank God for using my voice, healing me through my traumatic situations, so that others can also believe that they can also be healed, because we need each other. I may not ever meet you personally, but you are needed. You are needed in someone's life. Your story, your situation can and will change not just your life, but the life of someone else. Again, this is Lanatha of Encouraging Voices, and I encourage you to continue to use your voice. Be the voice that God needs to hear, so that He can use you to heal others. This is KAZ Radio, and thank you for tuning in. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. God bless you. Say a prayer.